All right, there we go. Morning, everybody. Welcome to the first working group meeting of 2025. Hope everybody had some good holiday time off. Um, I'll start the meeting just by letting everybody know that we have a save the date for Friday, March the 7th. We're going to be doing an in-person working group meeting. We're going to be hosting it here at the Western Fair District in our new Grove meeting space. And it'll be an open invitation for working group members. It'll give people a chance to meet some faces they've only seen through a screen, do a little networking. We'll be able to take a tour of the Grove as well. Um, so we'll have more details on that as we get closer. That's also the final day of the London Farm Show, which will be taking place right across the street from where we'll be meeting. So, chance to see the farm show, come to the in-person meeting, it'll be a good time. So, keep an eye out for more details on that. New members since we last met. We have Josh Cowan of the Grain Farmers of Ontario, Chris Bunio, Theory Mesh, Tom Schneckenberger, University of Windsor. I apologize if I got that incorrect. Kevin Cormack of Farm Evo, Ryan Gale, Crop Access Incorporated, and Siobhan Dayball of OMAFA. I see that Siobhan is online. If you'd like to introduce yourself to the group and let us know what brings you here.
Sure, I can. Thanks, Dan. Hi, everyone. My name's Siobhan. I work for OMAFA. I'm just back from an 18-month maternity leave. So I'm getting back into the swing of things and talking to other adults. So it's nice to see you all. I work for our research and innovation branch, and I've been working on some innovation topics. So you might see me at certain events. And if you do, I hope you introduce yourself and say hi. Nice to see you all.
Perfect. Thanks so much for joining us. I don't believe I see anybody else from that list on the call, so hopefully we can get some introductions from them at a later time. All right, and with that, I'd like to hand things over to our speaker for the week. We're joined by Dan Ganosis of Untether AI, and he'll be speaking to us about a project called AgBox. So Dan, please take it away.
Let me get my slides up here. Am I showing now?
It is, it's just not in presentation mode. There you go.
There we go.
All set.
Thanks, everybody. My name's Dan Schuses. I run the field ops for a company called Untether AI. We're a Toronto-based company and funded originally by General Motors and Intel Capital. So we're a semiconductor company. We make chips. And first time I went to FIRA and this fall, everybody looking at us like, what are you doing here? And the answer is we're trying to bring new innovation in AI to the tech space. We have a tremendous amount of expertise in the automotive industry. That's as General Motors was our original investor. And what we found from all of the technologies we were building, they had a very much a relevant application in ag tech. Tractors are going to be autonomous, collision avoidance, robotic control for all the equipment on board is very similar to driving implements when you're in the field. But we also found that we could have applications in defense. Collision avoidance in satellites is a huge thing. Industrial automation, mining, in construction, but basically everything flows from this automotive technology. So we brought that technology. We're a 7-year-old company, so we're putting together as our product came together, like, well, maybe we should look into that. What we found was just tremendously encouraging. I mean, this is a picture from this summer with Andrew and the Swarm Farm guys. I was out in Beck Seeds and having a field day, and they were using the weed sprayer. All the harvesters are coming on, of course, Carbon with their laser stuff. This felt like this is a really awesome opportunity. But once we got into it, the reality was really a lot different. First thing we found out is, $1.2 million for a laser weeder wasn't going to hack it. In fact, $500,000 isn't going to hack it. So there was this where we'd love to adopt this latest technology, not at that price point. We can't take that much risk. Plus, this was the last few years with interest rates going up, and it's been quite difficult to do capital acquisitions, which is why you've seen carbon go to monthly lease payments. But it costs too much, and they move too slow. The carbon laser weeder, I have gone out here in Colorado where I live and seen them in the fields with my laser gun. I've measured their half-mile an hour. I mean, on a really good day, they can almost achieve a mile per hour. And you just can't afford that level of cost to do that little amount of work. You just don't get the return on that investment. And probably one of the more difficult things is farmers just think all of this is just too complex. When you've got, we hear about John Deere at CES this week, and they're putting 16 cameras on board, and they're basically wrapping technology around their old tractors. It's too complex. There's no IT departments on it in the growers' fields, and so it has to be rock solid, reliable. So if we can get the cost down, we can get the speeds and the operations up, and we can simplify the devices. That's when we think the market's going to take off. So we start doing root cause analysis. What's the problem? Well, in this new John Deere announcement at CES this week, they're announcing all this brand new technology, and yet all of those cameras are still running off of GPUs from NVIDIA that were introduced more than 25 years ago. So I'm looking at, I'm talking to Deere, and I'm like, do you take an old 8-cylinder Hemi from an old Dodge Challenger and put it in there, and in the cab, or you've got an IBM PC set up in there? That's 25-year-old technology. Why wouldn't you do that? And the answer is everybody does it this way. So this is just the accepted norm. And that's not true. There's very big alternatives now. These devices, the problem with them is they weren't built for low power. This was performance in gaming. They weren't built necessarily for small form factors, ruggedized or any of that. They were meant to sit underneath your television when your children play a game. So we looked at it and said, well, how do we fix that? And here's an example of a SysLogic box. I got the Trimble guys use these almost in all their retrofits. A lot of the smaller laser guys are running this, and it's a perfectly good box. It's tops, we're talking tera operations per second. It's got a whole bunch of cores in it. That's where all your powers getting eaten up. And this is the de facto standard. And we took a look at it and went, well, wait a minute. With just one of our chips, we can get 10 times the performance. And you say, well, so what? What's 10 times performance? Frames per second of all those cameras is one of the most important metrics for autonomous vehicles. So if we can process the video and the camera images 10 times faster, well, we can do 10 times more work in the same footprint. You'll notice we can be in a regular standard box. We don't need all of the custom cooling stuff going on. Swarm Farm in their box, they're using so many GPUs that draw so much power. They had to air cool the thing. Sits on top of their diesel box in the sunshine all summer. So suddenly now this whole idea of simplification, wait a minute, do I have to, water cooled, what do I do when it freezes? Do I have to do anything special? It's mechanical, it's going to break just like a radiator in a car. That doesn't feel like the right thing. Wouldn't it be better to attack the power problem so you didn't require water cooling? And that's what we've done. So here's a very simple example from the Carbon Robotics. This is a data center in a footlocker, I call it. It just tacks on the back of their laser weeder. We can do more work, so we can do more acres and use about 1/10 the amount of power. And now go on a single board on a single box. So you take this big giant box that you're dragging across all the fields just to process cameras. We can do all that in a single chip. So that's kind of what we've been bringing to the ag tech industry is there's a there's a whole different way of doing computing now. It's a whole different generational approach, and it's based on accelerators, which are an array of processors instead of a central processing unit. The other thing going on in automotive is a move to what they're calling software-defined vehicles or centralized computing. They're saying we want a data center in the trunk that runs about 30 watts, and that's where everybody's going. But the movement is very similar to what's going on in ag tech. When you first start building in AI, you're going to basically put in a bunch of control units, small MCUs that do a specific job. And then you have these scattered across the vehicle. Same thing was in the car industry originally. Well, it's a maintenance nightmare. The amount of cabling that has to run between each of these control units adds to the weight. It's just not an efficient approach. So what we've gone to today is what's called domain centralized. So now we have basically zones within the car. You might have heard of ADAS for the automatic driver assistance system. We have engine control zones. We have communication zones that communicate from the vehicle to everything else. So now we're getting a little more integrated, a lot less complex. Therefore, the simplicity, the reliability all start to get better. And that's why you're seeing a lot of these new automobiles take off. But where we're really heading is towards a centralized environment where you have literally a centralized computer and all the functions and sensors and all the distributed and all that processing is done in one box. It's more reliable, it's cheaper, it's easier to maintain because the functionality is fixed in one uh, architecture, if you will. So we took that same approach, say, well, ag tech's going to follow. All of these industries are going to follow because it just makes sense. And when I was at Cultivate in Fargo this summer, this is a business guy who runs a potato farm. And his whole presentation was ag tech is not going to get where it needs to be if we all act like independent units. In the computing industry where we come from, years ago, there was a movement called Linux, which was an open source operating system available to everybody. And it quite literally replaced HPUX, it replaced the Sun OS, it replaced the IBM. All these proprietary operating systems suddenly went away, and everybody was using Linux. Now, yes, the beauty of open source is we don't all use the same thing, but we all start with the same thing, and then we customize or modify it to be exactly what we want. You might add some things. Some people want to add in some data security. Other people are adding in connectivity things. But this gentleman was correct. We got behind that notion of we want to be facilitators in the ag tech industry for collaboration. And we're coming from the semiconductor industry where this is the norm. I mean, this is every semiconductor company works with other companies, builds ecosystems, and it's the concept of for the greater good of the market. You know, a rising tide lifts all the boats, and that's what we're trying to do. And so our proposal has been, let's build a centralized computing for ag tech and make it open source so it's free to anybody who wants to use it. It's anybody can modify it, and we've come up with an initial kind of architecture that four major zones in the ag tech space. One obviously is driving, so perception, knowing where we're at, localization with GPS and all the location stuff. That's all one big zone. Robot control, so controlling sprayers, all of the harvesters, all of the stuff that have to be controlled by the vehicle. That's another zone. Then we've got field sensors. As long as we're driving these things through the fields, there's a whole aspect of collecting all that data, communicating it, and then of course storing that data and securing it. So we came up with these four, and by no means is this the final spec. This is we're floating this out to the ag tech industry, saying, is there enough interest that we can get everything together? We can raise, we can democratize this by raising some money from some of the government agencies, some of the investors, and suddenly an ag tech startup on day one has his box. He doesn't have to figure out, well, what computing hardware, and he doesn't have to go raise money to buy and design all that. I'm writing software on day one, and I'm using the same hardware everybody else is. Now, when I get into my final product, I might optimize this because I can. It's delete and add to it. If you're not doing any of this sensor stuff, don't include that in there. But essentially, you get, because you have a modern computing environment. This is not to say this is Untether's AI accelerator. Much like Intel, AMD, NVIDIA, we're in there saying this computing element is a combination of CPU and AI accelerator. And those two together will do a higher level of work and a much better power efficiency. So vehicles will move faster, will see and spray much better, and this thing scales because they're not individual modules of computers, they're an array. And so you can actually scale chip to chip. If you have so much work going on with so many cameras, you can just add 2 chips, 4 chips, 8 chips. It scales. It reduces the complexity. This is a single box, does all the computing in the vehicle. You have one on a shelf as a backup. When software is being updated, that thing's being updated on the internet inside of a controlled environment instead of over a cell phone while you're out in the field. All of the self-test, all of the enclosures, all of the updates, all of that's handled as if a single entity in a vehicle. And like I said, creates a standard computing platform. The difference will be in how you customize the hardware, how you differentiate with your software, but this would provide the entire ag tech industry with the ability to interoperate. There would be standard interfaces for everybody. We would make this as generic and available to every vendor as possible. And so we're calling this the AgBox Alliance, and this very rudimentary, just getting started. We're gonna have our kickoff meeting on the 21st of January. And everybody, it's by invitation only. We don't want the press. We don't want, just discussion and analysis. We want actual working group. We want this to be a session where everybody puts their heads together. We see the development. We've gone off and talked with 3 or 4 people that are building models that would be part of this. We're talking to independent developers that would build the hardware, and we're talking to manufacturers. J Squared in Canada is a good example of these people that build the enclosures and will build and deliver that. There'll also be a governance committee that'll be board of directors kind of thing, and there'll be a promotion and marketing group. And like the other alliance, there'll be different tiers. The John Deeres, the PTX Trimble's, the CNHs, they will pay a corporate level. Then the small medium enterprises and startups will pay a very much reduced, because their consumption will be smaller. Pretty much a startup is building 1 product. Look at Deere this week, they introduced 4, so there's a justification for that. Investors are welcome to join. I've had a lot of talks with VCs that are saying, if I was to invest in this once, then every one of my portfolio companies would benefit from my money in there. And that's exactly the way that this would work. If you have an incubator with 10 ag tech portfolio companies in, AgBox comes in and makes that faster time to market, faster time to minimally viable product. All things good happen because there's a standard computing out there that is 10 times more effective and 1/10 the amount of power. And let's not forget, very difficult to even buy these GPUs. 80% of what NVIDIA produces goes to 4 customers. You can kind of spell Chat GPT and that'll tell you who those 4 are. And that's makes it allocation for people who are doing real work. So lower cost, availability, simpler design, higher maintenance, all things good come out of this. And who's going to benefit? Well, everyone in ag tech. Everyone on here would have a benefit if you're doing smart spraying, if you're doing weeding and thinning, if you're doing harvesting. Everything gets better when there is a platform available that we don't all have to repeat the development What's going on now is each and every one of these people are, well, I'm buying a box from SysLogic or from Supermicro and I'm figuring out how to put it together or what boards I need. All of that should be off the table if the industry is going to thrive. And so that's what we're doing. We're, like I said, we're having a kickoff meeting, Zoom meeting. It'll be on the 21st. Ranjani's on the call. She's our marketing director who's managing this whole thing. Like I said, it'll be invitation only. We, after that meeting and the kickoff, we'll find out who's interested and how many people, and we'll be able to then set a direction. We think we can have a box ready in 6 months, and it's somewhere between $2 and $3 million to build. I'm talking to a lot of government agencies. There's a lot of climate change dollars that this is a great target. In Canada, there's Scale AI that subsidizes the implementation of AI into products, get some money out of them. Suddenly we have an alliance. We elect the board of directors. When I did this in 2014 with a product called RISC-V, which is a microprocessor alternative to Intel and ARM. And in 2014, we had about a dozen companies originally sign up. And now, 11 years later, is over 2,400. And this thing is the same kind of approach as it starts. And we're wise enough that we're only going to focus originally Canada, where we're at, expand into North America, go to Europe, go to India, go to Australia, go to Asia. If this is going to be a snowball that's picking up momentum. And we'll be exhibiting at Fair World, February 4th in Toulouse. And we'll be making this presentation there. And hopefully that'll be like the second wave of people getting interested. So that's what we're doing in the ag tech industry. We're trying to bring some really interesting semiconductor expertise to a very mechanical kind of market where everything is mostly based on big heavy iron. And the other thing that I'll mention on this, it's very scalable. So even the smaller bots, this would be the greenfield stuff, all the Nico stuff, all of that would benefit from this because you can scale this down and make it the right size for that implement. But you're running the same software as everything else. You've got the same hardware. So as far as maintenance and reliability, all of that's in there. So we would invite, like I said, we'd invite Ranjani, I see down in the chat, is putting a link if you want to go to that link and register for the kickoff meeting. We'd love to see you there. We'd love to get some feedback from you. Again, this is us trying to be facilitators of collaboration. We hear the growers, they want ag tech vendors to do this. Gentleman at Black Gold, I've been following up with him and he's all in. And even the growers will be starting to put some money into this because it benefits them. So thanks for the opportunity. If you got any questions, I'd be happy to answer. 100%. Sure how you're doing, managed, but I manage a federal Canadian government. Okay. Well, I'd love to follow up with you, Craig, and Craig Harvey. Okay, I'll save the chat and I'll be getting in touch with the AgRobotics folks.
Dan, I just have a question for you. How would you work with like the AEF ISOBUS standards? Like, is this something that's plug and play? Like you're looking to collaborate with them, or how is that going to play together?
The whole interconnectivity will be based rigidly on standards. It'll be voted by the governing committee what the final implementation. People are asking, well, how many video inputs are we going to put? All of these things scale. So what we're at now is just to say, this is the general high-level architecture, what we want to do. When we get started, again, collaboration. We don't want to define this. We want the industry and a group of people to define it. And so, yes, it'll be very much an adherence to standards in both hardware and software.
Okay.
And so
I would love to have a discussion with you following the meeting, if you'd have time.
Absolutely.
I believe Andrew's hand was up first. So I'll let Andrew go ahead.
I appreciate that.
It's
So
close.
Dan, can I buy a chip now? Because I could really use one of those chips in my kits. Because we're basically building the same box that you guys are, and I would prefer to work with someone because what you just presented is exactly what we're hearing. With our startup, right? We're hearing the exact same things. Where can we centralize? And even the AgRobotic working group that we were doing a couple of weeks ago. And so I guess one of my big questions for you really is that what is the threat of John Deere to this, right? Because like John Deere is our biggest threat. It's like what are you seeing from the big established guys, and how could this? Because if you don't have them, it's a harder slog. If you do have them, you're sold out. That's kind of the opinions. What are you kind of seeing?
So I when we started discussing this, I was proposing it internal. I said, from my experience in the semiconductor industry, the first people that are going to sign up for this are going to be John Deere and NVIDIA. So the big market dogs play defense, right? Number one always says, I mean, they introduced tractors today that Monarch had running 2 years ago, right? Others have had this stuff out there because startups tend to be more innovative. They will definitely put their money in so that they can come in and listen. And with time, they'll have to adopt. See, this is a bottoms up kind of momentum. When everybody else is moving off of GPUs except them, now they have a product deficiency, and that's when they start to make their change. The big guys have to be pushed. Otherwise, why would it, John Deere, why would I take any risk at all? And so we acknowledge that they're going to look at this as a threat, and we're going to welcome them in and say, this is the right thing to do. I've already had several meetings with the Deere guys, and they won't even meet me in one of their buildings. I have to meet them in a coffee shop at Iowa State conference room in Ames, Iowa, and Iowa State, because we can't, a competitor to NVIDIA, they see you registered at our, oh my gosh, the NVIDIA mob pull up the front, and we'll never get another GPU. But yes, I've heard exactly your comment from others. At FIRA, we had people saying, well, we want to do the same thing. And I'm like, that's why it's easier if we all get together and do this as a shared entity. And then, Andrew, you get to differentiate in customizing that hardware, tweaking it however you want. That's why we have guys like J Squared ready to do that. And you get to differentiate in software, and you get to differentiate in faster time to market. So I actually, I'm not afraid of them. I kind of welcome them in, and I think it's a bit cathartic in that. Gentlemen, we talked with Chuck Haggerty and his group last week, and the whole thing was we would love to have two of the same vehicles, one with what they're doing and one with ours, and put them out in the field, see what happens. See it, let them go run 40 acres, see what happens. Is it really 10% faster, or is it 3 times faster? In our calculations, what we're seeing is we can go 3, 4, 5, 6 miles per hour. And at that point, you start to get an ROI. So long answer to your short question. I'm looking forward to having them at the table and seeing their expression when they realize the power of a collaboration like this.
Perfect. Thank you.
Conrad.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. That was a very interesting presentation. That's exactly what we're seeing. The problem being a lot, actually, we're building robotics, and we have so many different systems in our robots, and some control the drive system, some control the vision system, some control robotics, the arms, and so on. So it's been very complex quite often. So I really like the initiative that you're putting forward. My question is actually, when you talk about this initial meeting or even any input, what kind of a level input are you looking for? Because I mean, for example, I'm more like thinking about the application side of it. I'm more of a mechanical engineer. Or are you looking more for software engineers that actually can talk more directly towards the implementation of all these different systems?
The answer is yes to all of that. So
Okay.
it's really meant to be an ecosystem of collaboration. So there'll be, we've got 3 groups that are working together on models for classification. You've got the Trimble guys and all their GPS. So we expect that you'll see a bunch of subgroups
Okay.
that come out of it. the biggest interest so far has been in vision AI.
Mhm.
You start putting 24 cameras on and you have to put a GPU on every camera.
I agree.
That's where you start getting into a lot of power, a lot of cost, a lot of weight in the vehicle. So we're right now building an architecture where we can bring all of those into our single device. And so you would have a vision AI subsystem, and then people, well, am I applying that in CEA kind of stuff where I'm identifying indoors vegetables am I using this outdoors? Now you've got the different. So then the subgroup about ruggedization, because if we're growing indoors, we don't have to have the same expense of a computer that we run out in the fields. And so
Mhm.
we would have so far. So what I've been trying to do is get 3 vendors committed in a bunch of different subcategories. Ruggedized manufacturers would be J Squared, Hyper, a group called Ahead, the model people, Guy Coleman and his Copenhagen folks, the North Dakota State folks. There's a group in UK that's doing a lot of software development. So yes, we're structuring this to have a high level kind of overview of what we're all doing, and then a bunch of focused subgroups where each one would have kind of a committee chair or a project lead, and that would be their bailiwick and drive that. And again, the more the merrier, because this is one where if you have enough people participating, you can actually get a whole lot more work done in parallel.
And the meeting on the 21st is more like a high level, I assume, kind of more like an overall.
It's an introduction. Here's
Yeah.
we're inviting a few hundred people. There's a lot of people in universities that have requested to attend. A lot of interest from investors, which are interesting. And so, yes, it's a kickoff meeting. Hello,
Yeah.
welcome. Very similar to what we presented here today, but a little bit more actionable. A little bit more. If you're interested, get back to us in the next 3 days because we're going to take the interested parties and then move towards articles of incorporation. We'll elect a board, get guys like Andrew involved because they know specifically, some subject matter expertise here. And that'll be the way that this
Yeah,
kind of
perfect.
transpires.
Good, wonderful. Hope
And
I
we're
can
going to do
join.
it. We're going to do time zone as conducively as we can. It would be late afternoon in
In Europe.
East Coast, and then of course, that becomes a problem in Europe. So we're dancing around that, but that's why we're going to focus on North America to
I
kick
think it's a
this.
good time, 11 o'clock. Yeah, it's not bad. Should work for everybody for the most part.
I
Thank
did
you.
put contact info in the chat if anybody wants to email or reach out to me. Our website is untether.ai. There is an ag tech section in there under the markets. There's a white paper that Robert wrote about ag tech and specifically about vision systems, since that's the low-hanging fruit here. And like I said, the carbon people are not real thrilled with what we're doing because they just took their $70 million from NVIDIA and they're now NVIDIA's poster child. So
Mhm.
the reason we point them out is because that's the easiest comparison. They've been publishing all their data. And I would like to say thanks to Joe, thanks to Dan. Our involvement here was a little bit serendipity. Dan was a moderator at University of Guelph for some panel session Joe was on, and my boss happened to be in Toronto that day. They invited him up, and next thing you know, you got to talk to these guys. And so here I am. So appreciate that, Joe and Dan. And we're we're trying to be grounded here. We're not trying to be high level architects and vision people. We go to the shows. I visit lots and lots of growers. Um, there's nothing better than being a carrot farm in Greeley, Colorado, and this guy loves his laser weeder. To find out that it was subsidized, he didn't really have to put any of his money in. He's using it as a case study. Well, of course you're going to love it, but what's the reality? Well, it's 3-4 weeks to get, and then by then, weeding time is gone, or it's too late. So we'd have to have 2 or 3 of these, and well, at that point. So we get out a lot. I grew up in Missouri, so I've detasseled corn, I've walked beans, I've driven grain carts, I've walked into augers and cut my head wide open. I've done all the stuff that dumbass 13-year-old boys do on a farm. And my wife's from Iowa, and my daughter's in Indiana right now. Her husband works at Beck's, so I do a lot of interaction with Brad over at Beck's. So we're trying to be hands-on, realistic, more blue collar than computer snobs, if you know what I mean. We are very.
I think it's important too, Dan, that the agricultural industry and the semiconductor industry, there's usually a big gap there. And so I think I appreciate you closing that gap, inviting us to be a part of this whole process, developing a special system and standards for our sector so that we can unleash guys like Andrew and they can innovate and create new products and use it as a platform. So yeah, we appreciate you showing up and maybe seeing the opportunity that we're trying to advance here as a group. So yeah, I look forward to supporting you and whatever way we can. We want Untethered to be successful. We want Carbon to be successful too, right? We want the whole, as you say, the whole industry to lift and create opportunities and get these innovations out. I keep telling people too, your first cell phone wasn't your current iPhone, right? So it's going to take continuous improvement, innovation, testing till this robotic sector is mature and everybody's got a robot or 2 or 10 on their farms. So it's a journey, not a destination.
Indeed, I totally agree with you. And to that end, for us, it's kind of one foot in each market. We're still a semiconductor company. We're still hanging out Silicon Valley, but I think we're one of very few that actually have decided that ag tech is a viable market, and we should be those ambassadors to bridging those gaps. So that's been and we talk to investors, we talk with obviously Walt and all those guys, the folks up in Fargo. We are trying to be good ambassadors, but I want to make it clear because I've had a few people kind of raise one eyebrow. This is not a effort to lock people into Untether's product. Okay, our product interfaces through PCIe like everybody else. Once you have that box, you can replace our card with our competitors or any card you wanted to build on your own. This is meant to get the entire industry at a higher level of competency with AI. And to that end, we think we'll succeed like everybody else. If it's better and there's more and people are adopting it and the return on investment's there, well, then it starts to snowball and people start saying, well, yeah, I'm going to buy another one next year because this one proved itself. And I have a brother-in-law in Iowa that's still corn and beans, big acreage, and he beats me up all the time because it's like, we don't have this IT department we just don't have that, and there's nothing worse than coming out in the morning and firing up and boom, the display says, oh, you're due for a software update, and come back in 2-3 hours, and drives them absolutely nuts. For some reason, it's my fault. I don't know why, but that's family politics, and I just absorb it and move on. So, but anyway, I think there's a pent up demand for this. When it first came out, everybody was so excited, and then of course the reality. If you're familiar with the Gartner hype curves, exactly what Joe said. Almost every industry goes through this. It's so exciting. We had IoT. We have all these different smart cities. And then there's this valley of reality of, we still got a lot of work, and then you build yourself back out of that. And we're doing that right now. And with that, I think there'll be more money as investors start seeing more revenue and more activity in this space, then they'll be willing to put more money in. Guys like Andrew can get funded with better terms, quicker products to market. So we hope. But my main point was, this isn't us trying to pull a fast one. That would be people like Intel and AMD and NVIDIA. That's the game they play. We're 170 people. We just want everybody to succeed. So
Excellent. Thanks, Dan.
Yep.
We'll give two more, Valdemiro and Michael, your hands are up. Two more like quick questions from each of you, and then we'll have to move on to the rest of the agenda. So Valdemiro, you go ahead first.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Dan. And well, also I would like to thank the other Dan, the presenter, this time for the great presentation. While you were presenting, the topic of SDV or software defined vehicle caught my attention because like it's that's where the industry is going, software defined vehicle. So for example, General Motors perhaps trying to reduce the number of ECU in their cars, and basically they are doing that by introducing several sensors, and those sensors, they'll be collecting data, and but a given problem is arriving from that, where like if we're reducing the number of ECUs and replace that with sensors or aggregators, what's going to happen now is that like we need a powerful, perhaps like chip or central unit that is going to process all that data. So ADA data come from ADAs like camera and whatever. Those are like a lot of data. So my question is how this, since like perhaps we are trying to introduce like this concept of SDV in agriculture, where like we would be doing like over the air update of software and all of that. How is this new box going to handle the SDV concept, like when it comes to processing power and so on? That's my question.
The answer is in several ways.
Mhm.
One way I mentioned this approach to processing is not like a CPU or a GPU. Those kinds of processors are very standard over the last 40 years. The CPU goes to memory, gets the instruction, decodes it, executes it, and writes it back. So every time you're doing something, you're going back and forth to memory. In the new world of what we call accelerators, they're much more like a gate array. They're much more an array of yeah, basically little pods that do a processing. They usually have 3 or 4 or 5 RISC-V cores in them. And then it's a spatial kind of processing. Think of it as you load up all of these different cores and then you say go, and they're almost like dominoes falling, and you get your answer. The point is you're not going back and forth to memory. And that's where 90% of your power is. That's our biggest advantage there. So we don't have the big high-speed, high bandwidth memory requirements. The second way we do that is scaling. Like I said, our chip is a fixed array, but if your requirements are bigger, say you're trying to build bigger models of classification of weeds and crops for more accurate spraying or zapping. So with that, you can daisy chain these arrays. So you'd say, here's my original array. Now I'm adding 2. We have a board that actually has 4 chips on it for that level. So scaling, pull a board, put in a bigger board. That's the swap. And the third answer of how we're handling that is, like I said, when we have a single self-contained computer, a data center in a box in a vehicle, growers can afford to have a secondary box as a backup that's sitting powered up, sitting on the internet. It updates itself automatically. And at any time, I can pull that out. Because these are standards now, it'll be much like the car industry, where when you pull in, they can pull out an ECU and swap it on the fly almost. We'll have that same kind of effect. So you won't have 14 different control units like you mentioned. You'll have one. And therefore, with that one, it's very easy to manage a backup one. And the updates then are happening either in the Johnson building or inside, and it's connected to high-speed internet, and it updates in minutes, not hours and days. So I hope I answered your question, but it's really scaling that makes all of this kind of the future of how we're going to do that computing. And we're still learning quite a bit about it, to be honest. This is still very much a technology in development, and don't let ChatGPT sway you too much. We're building a third generation chip for what's called generation AI. So it's the chip that will talk in the cab, or it'll convert images into words. So it's that generative AI stuff, and that's the chip we're working on next. And as we go through all that, you'll see then, like with every other technology, as you build, when the iPhone came out, as Joe said, well, then all of a sudden there's this big app market that came out. And then with the big app market, then we came integration with banks, and suddenly it just connects around, and that's what we expect here.
Excellent. Michael, final quick question.
Quick and super fast, because I know you want to get moving. I just wanted to say this is like from where I'm sitting, it sounds amazing, and a lot of the stuff you said rang true. Particularly when the NVIDIA Nano Super came out, and all of a sudden you can't get stock of a lot of NVIDIA stuff because of the software and hardware updates they made. I don't want to be in competition with people doing gaming and generative AI and stuff like that to get my hardware. So that kind of rings true for us here. And there's just one parallel I wanted to draw real quick to see if it made sense to you is when we were getting into the ag tech space last year, and obviously looking to draw on standards and frameworks and accelerator development time. And ROS is one of those things that is pretty well established in the robotics space. But it's really heavily focused. It's not ag focused, it's very heavily focused on UGVs. And of course we need that in ag. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that I think specific to the way we do ag, like the kinds of manipulators we want to use and vision problems we want to solve, that there's just not a whole lot out there already. And so I wonder if this is an opportunity to create not just the interoperability, but the building blocks for people to stand on top of on some of that really ag specific stuff that's not well covered elsewhere.
I totally agree with you. And that's why we spend a lot of time with the universities. We're trying to influence those organizations as well. Arizona, Auburn, the folks that are doing quite a bit of ag tech research. And the whole point is it takes that whole community kind of thing. It's not just, hey, we got a box. No, it's a bigger connectivity of tentacles throughout the industry. So our hope is if we launch this, then the governing body takes over. They have a budget. They can hire people to do this full time and drive that. We don't want anybody as a member to actually have to be the burden for that, including us. We just want to be able to do it. So it's that collaborative effect. If you get 20 people to actually be working on this, you're going to have a very quality output. We know that.
I'm looking forward to it. Sounds great.
Nice to meet you there, Michael.
Thanks.
Perfect. So Dan, I'll shut up now, okay?
No worries at all. Thank you very much for joining us and for your presentation. I really appreciate it. Dan dropped his contact info in the chat, so if you have any follow-ups or questions you want to ask, feel free to reach out to him. All right, so moving on, Sorry, is anyone else seeing this whiteboard on the screen?
Yeah, I am. Okay, it's gone now.
Oh, so I have no idea what that was. Sorry. I don't know if that was me or someone else or what that was. Upcoming meetings, conferences, tours, things like that. There's the Waterloo RoboHub Winter Symposium, which we have added on January 17th. The AgRobotics Working Group is going to have a table at that event. So definitely check that out if you're in the area. Otherwise, nothing new added yet. But we do have some things coming up this year, some exciting stuff. So if you can attend, please do. Project updates. We still have a general call for speakers and presentations. So if you're interested in giving a presentation or recommend someone who you think would make a good speaker, please reach out to myself or to Bridget, and we'd love to hopefully set something up this year. Coming up soon, we're going to be preparing a survey for all of the working group members to request permission to share contact info if asked. Because sometimes people say they'll come to us and they'll say, can I get a list of everybody working in this area or that? And we need permission to be able to share lots of contact information. Otherwise, it breaches our privacy policies with the Western Fair Association. So it's just a yes, or basically just a yes or no. I consent to, giving us permission to share your contact info with anyone who might request it. So there'll be more details in the email and everything that gets sent out, but that'll be coming out soon. Also live on our website, on our contact page, are our robotics testing and assistance applications. So if you have a robot you want to test, or you have an issue that you are hoping a robot can solve, you can fill that out so we can get some more information, and hopefully we can figure out some kind of solution that'll work for everybody. We have added a sort of a new section to the agenda for this year, and it's just about action items from previous meetings, just to help keep everybody, us mostly, but keep everybody on track with things that are supposed to be happening and things like that. So these are from a little while ago, because our last meeting was in December.
Yeah, the tenant's name is Michael Johnson. Oop, are you?
Sorry about that. Yes, the job board is also live, just a reminder. So if there are any upcoming employment opportunities that you know of, feel free to send them our way, and we'll be happy to post them up on that for visibility. Funding announcements and opportunities. We don't have any new ones. However, there are some that are coming close to their closing with the beginning of the year. The Emergent Horticulture Opportunities Fund is open until February. The Ontario Agri-Food Research Initiative, January 13th is the close for streams other than commercialization. And the Agriculture Clean Technology Program Research and Innovation stream, the deadline is today. Not sure if it's until the end of the day or if it might be already closed, but if that was something you want to check out, now's your chance. And with that, I'll move over into the round table. Garson, I see you've already got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I just want to update everyone about our program. I know it's been listed there for a while, our open competition. Our program has been extended by another year. So if anyone's has been looking at our program and looking at that, what has been a 2025 end date for our projects, that has been extended by a year now. So there's some additional opportunities, and we do have some dollars that we're trying to get awarded out to some ag tech projects. So just a little update on the extension of our program. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Carson. Did anybody else have any questions, comments, thoughts, queries?
Dan, I can kind of talk about SWAC, because I went to that down at Ridgetown.
Sure.
It was my first time actually going to that. It was really good. I don't know if anyone here also went. It was great as a educational thing. I am not a crop kid. I was a dairy farmer, so it was good to like learn about the crops and the technology coming in, which again we're helping monitoring. One thing that kind of came up, and this is for I guess the companies here, is they are looking not just the SFAC group, but different organizations across Ontario are looking for more speakers over the summer. They're kind of figuring those things out right now. So if you're solving some kind of big problem, they're really interested. We can't really pitch ourselves as a, buy our product, but we can talk about it, like the problem and how to look at it. So for us, we're doing preventative maintenance. So that's what our topics will be on. So just something that if you're, a startup or a company trying to get a little more traction, there's different organizations looking for their summertime speaker lists and such. So, reach out to those groups to try and get on there. Kind of like what you do here, right, Dan, that you help facilitate for us, but, shake a hand, have a coffee and meet those people. So just put that bug in the air for people. SBOC was good. And if you get a chance, definitely go to the Midwest thing. I'm actually going to that robotics event on the 17th instead, but it's definitely worth it if you have a chance. Go to those, shake some hands, learn something. So it was definitely worth it.
Awesome. Thanks for that insight, Andrew. Appreciate it. Alrighty then. Please do check out the other items and articles. We try to keep them updated with fresh stuff on the goings on in the industry. So there's always some good stuff to read there. And with that, I think we'll bring the meeting to a close. I want to thank our speaker, Dan, again for joining us. We really appreciate the time and all the information. Thank you to all of our members for joining us again. And have a great weekend, and we will see everybody next Friday. All right. Thanks very much. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Great presentation. Have a good day.